Hi, I'm Chris Carter. I'm reading from Arcadia for the parts of Septimus and Valentine. Now, so, what is this business that cannot wait?
I think you know it, sir. You have insulted my wife.
Insulted her? But that would deny my nature, my conduct, the admiration in which I hold Mrs. Chater.
I have heard of your admiration, sir. You insulted my wife in the gazebo yesterday evening.
Ah, you are mistaken. I made love to your wife in a gazebo. She asked me to meet her there. I have a note here somewhere. I dare say I could find it for you. If someone is putting it about that I did not turn up, then by God, sir, it is slander.
You damn it, Letcher! You would drag down a lady's reputation to make a refuge for your cowardice. It will not do. I am calling you out.
Chater, my dear friend.
You dare to call me that. I demand satisfaction.
Mrs. Chater demanded satisfaction, and now you are demanding satisfaction. I cannot spend my time, day and night, satisfying the demands of the Chater family. And as for your wife's reputation, it stands now where it ever stood.
You blackguard!
I assure you, Mrs. Chater is charming and spirited, with a pleasing voice and a dainty step. She is the epitome of all the qualities society applauds in her sex. And yet, her chief renown is for a readiness that keeps her in a state of tropical humidity, as would grow orchids in her drawers in January.
Damn you, Hodge! I will not listen to this. Will you fight or not?
Not! There are no more than 2 or 3 poets of the first rank now living, and I will not shoot one of them dead over a perpendicular poke in a gazebo with a woman whose reputation could not be adequately defended with a platoon of musketry deployed by Rota.
You say so? Who are the others, in your opinion? No. This goes very ill, Hodge. I will not be flattered out of my course. You say so, do you?
I do. And I would say the same to Milton were he not already dead. Not the part about his wife.
But among the living. Mr. Southey.
Oh, Southey I would have shot on sight.
Oh, yes, he has fallen off. I admired Philippa quite, but Maddox. Oh, dear me. But we are straying from the business here.
Right.
You took advantage of Mrs. Chater, and if that were not bad enough, it appears every stable boy and scullery maid on the strength.
Damn you! Have you not listened to a word I've said?
I have heard you, sir, and I will not deny I welcome your regard. God knows one is little appreciated if one stands outside the coterie of hacks and placemen who surround Geoffrey and the Edinburgh.
My dear Chater, they judge a poet by the seating plan of Lord Holland's table.
By heaven, you are right. And I would very much like to know the name of the scoundrel who slandered my verse drama, The Maid of Turkey, in the Piccadilly Recreation, too.
The Maid of Turkey? I have it by my bedside. When I cannot sleep, I take up The Maid of Turkey like an old friend.
There you are. And the scoundrel wrote he would not give it to his dog for dinner, were it covered in bread sauce and stuffed with chestnuts. When Mrs. Chater, she read that, she wept, sir, and would not give herself to me for a fortnight. Which recalls me to my purpose.
The new poem, however, will make your name perpetual.
Whether it do or do
not...
not...
it is not a question, sir. No coterie can oppose the acclamation of the reading public. The couch of Eros will take the town.
Is that your estimation?
Oh, it is my intent.
Is it?
Sir.
Is it?
Yes.
Well... I do not understand you.
Oh, you see, I have an early copy sent to me for review. I say review, but I speak of an extensive appreciation of your gifts and your rightful place in English literature.
Well, I must say, that is certainly... You have written it?
Not yet.
And how long does...
To be done right, it requires a careful rereading of your book, of both your books, several readings, together with an outline work for an exhibition of deference or disdain, as the case merits. I make notes, of course, I order my thoughts, and finally, when all is ready and I am calm in my mind...
Did Mrs. Chater know of this before before you...
I think likely did.
There is nothing that woman would not do for me. Oh, now you have an insight to her character. Yes, by God, she is a wife to me, sir.
And for that alone, I would not make her a widow.
Do we believe nature is written in numbers?
We do.
Then why do your equations only describe the shapes of manufacture?
I do not know.
And thus, God could only make a cabinet.
He has a mastery of equations which lead into infinities where we cannot follow.
What a faint heart. We must work outward from the middle of the maze. We will start with something simple. I will plot this leaf and deduce its equation. You will be famous for being my tutor when Lord Byron is dead and forgotten.
Back to Cleopatra.
Is it Cleopatra? I hate Cleopatra.
You hate her? Why?
Everything is turned to love with her. New love, absent love, lost love. I never knew a heroine that makes such noodles of our sex. It only needs a Roman general to drop anchor outside the window, and away goes the empire like a christening mug into a pawn shop. If Queen Elizabeth had been a Ptolemy, history would have been quite different. We would be admiring the pyramids of Rome and the great Sphinx of Verona.
God save us.
But instead, the Egyptian noodle made carnal embrace with the enemy, who burned the great library of Alexandria without so much as a fine for all that is overdue. Oh, Septimus, can you bear it? All the lost plays of the Athenians, 200 at least by Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, thousands of poems, Aristotle's own library brought to Egypt by the noodle's ancestors. How can we sleep for grief?
By counting our stock. 7 plays from Aeschylus, 7 from Sophocles, 19 from Euripides, my lady. You should no more grieve for the rest than for a buckle lost from your first shoe, or for your lesson book, which will be lost when you are old. As we shed, as we pick up, like travellers who must carry everything in their arms, and what we let fall will be picked up by those behind. The procession is very long, and life is very short. We die on the march, but there is nothing outside the march, so nothing can be lost to it. The missing plays of Sophocles will turn up, piece by piece, or be written again in another language. Ancient cures for diseases will reveal themselves once more. Mathematical discoveries, glimpsed and lost to view, will have their turn again. You do not suppose, my lady, that if Archimedes had been hiding in the great library of Alexandria, we would be at a loss for a corkscrew. I have no doubt that the improved steam-driven heat engine, which puts Mr. Noakes into an ecstasy, that he and it and the modern age should all coincide, was described on papyrus. Steam and brass were not invented in Glasgow. Now, where are we? Let me see if I can attempt a free translation for you. And Harrow, I was better at this than Lord Byron. Yes. The barge she sat in, like a burnished throne, burned on the water. The something, the poop was beaten gold. Purple the sails? What's this? Oh, yes. So perfumed, cheat, that the winds were lovesick with them.
Cheat!
The oars were silver, which to the tune of flutes kept stroke.
Cheat!
And made the water which they beat to follow faster, as amorous of their strokes. For her own person, it beggared description. She did lie, in her pavilion.
I hope you die.
When your Thomasina was doing maths, it had been the same maths for a couple of 1,000 years, classical, and for a century after Thomasina. Then maths left the real world behind, just like modern art, really. Nature was classical, maths was suddenly Picasso's. But now, nature is having a last laugh. The freaky stuff is turning out to be the mathematics of the natural world.
This feedback thing.
For example.
Well, Could Thomasina have...
No, of course she bloody couldn't.
All right, you're not cross. What did you mean you were doing the same thing she was doing? What are you doing?
Actually, I'm doing it from the other end. She started with an equation and turned it into a graph. I've got a graph, real data, and I'm trying to find the equation which would give you the graph if you used it the way that she's used hers. Iterated it.
What for?
It's how you look at population changes in biology. Goldfish in a pond, say. This year there are X goldfish, next year there'll be Y goldfish. Some get born, some get eaten by herons, whatever. Nature manipulates the X and turns it into a Y. Then Y goldfish is your starting population for the following year. Just like Thomasina. Your value for Y becomes your value for X. The next question is, what is being done to X? What is the manipulation? Whatever it is, it can be written down as mathematics. It's called an algorithm.
Well, it can't be the same every year.
No, the details change. You can't keep tabs on everything. It's not nature in a box. But it isn't necessary to know the details. When they're all put together, it turns out the population is obeying a mathematical rule.
The goldfish are?
Yes. No, the numbers. It's not about the behavior of fish. It's about the behavior of numbers. This thing works for any natural phenomenon that eats its own numbers. Measles epidemics, rainfall averages, cotton prices. It's a natural phenomenon in itself. Spooky.
Does it work for grouse?
I don't know yet. I mean, it does, undoubtedly, but it's hard to show. There's more noise with grouse.
Noise?
Distortions, interference. Real data is messy. There's 1,000 acres of moorland that had grouse on it. Always did until about 1930. But nobody counted the grouse. They shot them. So, count the grouse that they shot. But burning the heather interferes. It improves the food supply. A good year for foxes interferes the other way. They eat the chicks, and then there's the weather. It's all very, very noisy out there. Very hard to spot the tune. Like a piano in the next room. It's playing your song, but unfortunately it's out of whack, or some of the strings are missing, and the pianist is tone deaf and drunk. I mean, the noise! It's impossible.
What do you do?
You start guessing what the tune might be. You try to pick it out of the noise. You try this, you try that, you start to get something. It's half-baked, but you start putting the notes which are missing. And not quite the right notes. And bit by bit, dum-da-dum-dum, dear Valentine, dum-da-dum-dum to you. The lost algorithm.
Yes, I see. And then what?
I publish. You don't think she's getting a thing about Bernard, do you?
I wouldn't worry about Chloe. She's old enough to vote on her back. Byron fought fatal duel, says Don. Or rather, says Don.
It may all prove to be true.
It can't prove to be true. It can only not prove to be false yet.
Just like science.
If Bernard can stay ahead of getting the rug pulled till he's dead, he'll be a success.
Just like science. The ultimate fear is of posterity.
Personally, I don't think it'll take that long.
And then there's the afterlife. An afterlife would be a mixed blessing. Bernard Nightingale. I don't believe you know Lord Byron. There must be heaven up there.
You can't believe in an afterlife, Valentine.
Oh, you're going to disappoint me at last.
Am I? Why?
Science and religion.
No, been there, done that. Boring.
Oh, Hannah. Fiancé. Have pity. Can't we have a trial marriage and I'll call it off in the morning?
I don't know when I've received a more unusual proposal.
Have you had many?
Well, that would be telling.
Well, why not? Your classical reserve is only a mannerism and neurotic.
Do you want the room?
You get nothing if you give nothing.
I ask nothing.
No. Stay.